Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sarah Lynn, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for our MV Smart Camera line. And today we are going to be talking about MV Smart Cameras. So at a high level, we're going to be going over a little bit about Cisco Meraki, and then we're going to dive right into the meat of our presentation. We're going to be talking about the MV product philosophy and architecture, a little bit of a contrast from what traditional systems look like versus Meraki MV and how they can help simplify your day-to-day when it comes to security cameras. Then we'll do a product demo. And we're going to go actually back into our presentation and talk about this idea of camera as a sensor. There's a lot of video data, a lot of information in that video data that the cameras are recording, and our cameras have the ability for you to make use of that information to get insights into what's happening in your business. We'll do a really quick analytics demo on the capabilities of the camera and dashboard again, and then close out with some licensing, next steps, that sort of thing. So first, to start off about Meraki, in case you are not familiar with us, we do have a whole intro to cloud managed IT if you really want to delve into the behind the scenes story, but at a high level, we are a complete cloud managed IT solution. So that means we have wireless, switching, security, SD-WAN, unified endpoint management, network performance management, as well as our smart camera line. It's an integrated hardware, software, and cloud services platform. We're a leader in cloud managed IT and among Cisco's fastest growing portfolios. So let's get into the MV smart cameras, but before we do that, let's kind of level set a little bit. Now, if you are familiar with traditional security camera deployments, if you're managing them in your organization, you might be used to dealing with something that looks a little bit like this. We've got multiple parts and pieces because, as you may know, a security camera deployment requires more than just a camera. The cameras are sensors that are picking up the light information, but all of that info that they are gathering has to be stored somewhere. So that's usually going to be on an NVR, network video recorder, or a DVR, depending on the age of your system, some type of server, or on-premise hardware. And you've got potentially multiple software packages. So if you want to do any configuration of the cameras or watch video or run analytics, things like that, then you've got more pieces. So commonly you'll have a VMS or video management solution to do some of that, and you might be layering on additional software and things like that for analytics. So that lends itself to a lot of complexity. Because unless you have a very small system, these parts and pieces are usually sourced from multiple vendors, and that means you're having to make them work together. We've heard a lot of stories from some customers about the headaches that can cause. We had one customer, a school, and so they actually dreaded when there was an update or a bug fix that came out for one part of the system, because that usually meant something else stopped working. So they had to go around and chase down what that was, change some configurations to get everything back up and running. But of course, if you're not updating the parts and pieces of your system, then you leave yourself up to potential network vulnerabilities, as you may know. You know, the second piece of this, and it's not listed on here explicitly, but you can kind of gather from the fact that we've got a different number of cameras connecting to different number of these boxes, is a scalability issue. So generally, a network video recorder is scaled to work with X number of cameras, maybe 8 cameras, even 8-channel NVR or something like that. And so if you need to add a 9th camera and you don't have that capacity, then you may need to either buy a new or a bigger box of whatever it is. So scalability, again, is also an issue when you're trying to manage these systems, you know, add cameras, add capacity. Now, all of that complexity is kind of runs counter to the MV product philosophy, or our product philosophy here at Meraki, right? When we think about solutions that we build for customers, we want to build something that can solve the customer problems or the problems that you guys are dealing with, not just build features. So we didn't want to just take kind of what existed today and be like, great, we'll just manage it in the cloud. We wanted to really build a solution from the ground up that met the needs of what you're trying to accomplish with video surveillance systems, but didn't have the same kind of pitfalls and the same challenges and complications that systems today have. So what we wanted to do was take Meraki's expertise in cloud, distributed computational systems, and user experience design and bring that to the video surveillance world. Video surveillance is one thing that our customers were frequently asking us to Merakify, to make simple. So with that, with our system, we wanted to say goodbye to a lot of complexity. So, no need for additional on-premise hardware like that in VR. No need for standalone software packages, drivers, plugins, complicated IP configurations. And then no need for DVDs, thumb drives, VHSs, or other outdated sharing options. And we didn't really talk about that. But when you do have an incident, we had some customers tell us that they didn't actually know how to get video off the system, or they had such old systems that their method of sending files from one place to another was to actually send a guy on an airplane, record whatever they needed on that, or take that on that VHS or that thumb drive and fly it to wherever it needed to go. Another customer who had a fairly new system had an incident happen and they couldn't figure out how to get video off. They finally gave up and just took their smartphone and recorded what was playing back on that VMS system on their phone and shared that as evidence. So again, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of complex, and that's not something that we wanted any of our customers like yourselves to deal with this MV camera system. So our deployment is much simpler, and I did cheat a little bit. That first slide where we're looking at traditional camera systems had maybe 9 or 10 cameras. This has 1, but the point is that all you need is the camera. That camera has onboard storage on it. It has processing power on the camera that's doing kind of all the analysis of the video, all the processing of the video, and everything is configured and managed via the Meraki dashboard. So you connect that camera to the internet, it's powered over PoE, and you're up and running. And this means that you don't need a lot of other infrastructure. This means if you need to add another camera, all you need to do is make sure you have a switch port for it. So it really simplifies a lot of the complexities and solves a lot of the challenges that exist today. So the MV Smart Camera family looks a little bit like this. These are our models pictured on the left side here. And we'll get into more detail about them later, but we are the only security camera from a cloud leader. Everything's managed in the Meraki dashboard. There's up to 256 gigabytes of solid state storage on each camera, as well as functionality like wireless and audio. We have tools like motion and schedule-based recording to maximize that retention, as well as an optional cloud archive if you do have a requirement for a secondary backup or longer storage. And these cameras, again, are smart cameras, so they have the ability to act as sensors, not just security cameras. So really with this line, we're trying to offer cameras that do more than just security. So this is a little bit of a deeper look at the architecture. So the scene being recorded, the storage is on the camera itself. And when it comes down to viewing, we actually handle that a couple different ways. So if you want to watch video, it's always going to be done in the Meraki dashboard. But the cameras on the dashboard are intelligent enough to know how you're connected. So if you are trying to access one of these cameras while on the same network, then we will actually pull the video direct from the camera to that viewing device. So again, it uses no WAN bandwidth at that point. It's only going to be LAN bandwidth. But if you are remote, it's going to be the same process for the end user trying to access video, but then we can detect that, hey, you do not have a direct IP connection to that camera, so we're going to pull the video from the camera at that point. We'll pull it through the cloud. We'll do what we call a cloud proxy to securely stream it to that remote viewing device. So the end user experience doesn't change. It's just how we get that video to the device that does. And that's just one of the ways that we're pretty bandwidth conscious. So again, if you're not viewing video remotely, we're not using WAN bandwidth. And really, unless you're watching video, very little bandwidth is being used. It's only kind of metadata, configuration data, information data that's going from the camera into the cloud. So the average of that is usually less than 50 kilobits per second upstream bandwidth if you're not watching video. Now, we make this very fast and easy to use because we do some hybrid video processing. So video is actually analyzed on the camera itself. There are powerful processors on board that are looking at, hey, what's changed? Where's their motion? What's happening? And we're sending that information. We're doing the motion indexing in the cloud. So when you need to retrieve video, when you're looking for something, it's really quick and easy, and you'll see that in the demo in a few moments. Now, the last piece that I want to touch on is the security piece. We talked a little bit about this in traditional systems, just from a, you want to make sure that you're updating and pushing down security fixes and bug fixes to the system. And of course, we do that in Dashboard automatically, so you don't need to actually go out and touch every device to make sure it's updated. But the other piece of that is encryption, so securing access to that video. With a lot of systems, true end-to-end encryption, so encryption of the storage, encryption of the video in transit, is complicated, if not impossible. But with Meraki, everything is encrypted end-to-end by default. It requires no configuration, and you cannot turn the encryption off. So video is encrypted at rest. When the cameras first connect and boot up online, they actually do a full disk encryption to encrypt that video storage. They also will go online and purchase a SSL certificate to encrypt that traffic whenever video is going from the camera to a viewing device. So again, the video is encrypted during transit, and we manage that certificate as well when it needs to be renewed and that sort of thing. And of course, management data, the dashboard, is encrypted and secured just like it is for the rest of the Meraki stack as well. So we're going to pause now and switch into the demo so we can show you some of the security camera features of this MV Smart Camera and how easy it is to use. So we'll be back in just a second. All right, so now we are in the dashboard, and I'm going to expand this out so we can see more. And we're going to go into our Meraki corporate network here in San Francisco, which if you've been to a webinar or seen a demo, you've probably seen before. But this time we're going to focus on the cameras. So right now we're looking at all of the networks that are within the Meraki corporate organization. The organization is Meraki as a whole, and these networks are generally office locations, things like that. As we've grown, we've added more and more different locations. And we're going to go to San Francisco. So if I want to type in, I can do that, type in SIN to narrow down for San Francisco. Select San Francisco. All right, and then we're going to go into the cameras. And under network-wide, it'll show you all of the equipment that you have in the network that you're looking at for Meraki. But just a quick note, while there is some additional visibility and some troubleshooting tools and sometimes some interoperability that you get, the more Meraki products you have, everything we're going to show you today from the cameras will work regardless of what type of switches those are plugged into or what type of wireless those cameras are connected to if you're running them wirelessly. So here we're looking at all of our cameras that are connected. Here we've got none offline, which is good news. None are alerting. 28 online and 2 dormant. So that means they are on here, but they've not been plugged in. And this visibility we take for granted at Meraki, the status of everything, what's happening, but it's difficult with a lot of other camera systems. We've also heard stories from customers not knowing that there was an issue with a camera or a storage device until they had to retrieve video from it. And by that point, it was too late. And I just expanded out, so now we're looking at connectivity for the last week. Everything was green for the last 24 hours, but if we go back, we can see, hey, there are a couple connectivity issues that happened. So you can look at that, check to see, hey, what was happening at that point, what was the issue, hopefully mitigate that before it becomes a big problem. But we also have proactive alerting. So we can send alerts if a camera has been offline for more than maybe 5 minutes. So you can go in and troubleshoot, fix that, again, before you lose video that could be important. Now this camera list is also searchable, so we've got them named by kind of the location, and they're also tagged by maybe where they are. So I can come in, if I want to go look at cameras for maybe our coffee bar, I can type in COF, and then we've narrowed down to 5th floor coffee bar. One of those cameras actually hasn't been plugged in yet, but 2 of them are. And if I want to go view video for that camera, all I have to do is click it. And now we're viewing video for this camera system. Now, I just do want to note that the video that you're going to be seeing over WebEx might be a little bit of a delay here, a little bit laggy, but I do want to let you know that these cameras are recording and up to 1080p, except for our Fisheye camera, which has an 8.4 megapixel sensor, so it's very high resolution. But if you want to see what these actually look like in real life on your device, playing around with them, we do have a no-risk evaluation program, so we can actually send out at no charge products for you to test out in your environment, kick them around, play with them, see how you like them, and if you like them, you can go ahead and buy them. If not, you can, again, send them back free of charge, no cost to you. So right now we're looking at video for right now in the office, but if you want to go look at video from earlier, we use natural language processing to make it really, really simple. So if I want to go, hey, this morning at 8, I can type in that. Oops, no video available right there. That must have been one of those issues. So again, I can go back to now. I can go yesterday at 2 p.m., click enter, and we should be pulling that video from right there. Now, I do want to talk about yesterday at 2 p.m. because yesterday we did have an issue where we put one of our little fun MV gnomes on the coffee table here when George and I were talking. George is the product manager, and forgot it there. We went off, we went and made some coffee, came back, and George was like, hey, Sarah, the gnome wasn't there. Right? Unfortunately, we have a camera here, so we can kind of figure out, exactly what happened, who took that gnome. In order to do that, what we can do is actually click motion search. And at that point, we overlay grid over the video feed. So again, if you remember from earlier, I said that the cameras are always analyzing the video and they're looking for motion. They're looking for changes in the pixels and all of these spaces, and that means that we can do things like motion search. So we can say, hey, I want to know when, in this time frame that we're looking at now, the camera detected motion in this area right here, which is where we left that gnome. And so now I come down and I can see what we call motion recaps. Now, if you've looked at the cameras before, you might be familiar with this list here, which was still much, much more helpful than having to go, back in time and maybe scrolling and fast forwarding 8x through video until you maybe stumble upon what happened. But these images are actually snapshots or kind of like x-rays into what is happening during these motion events. So each of these is a 30-second motion event, and it's a composite image that the camera is actually building that shows what happens during that time frame. So if I click into it, you can see in more detail that, hey, there's that gnome that we forgot right there, and we can see some people are standing here talking. This guy walked by. Okay, no one's taken the gnome there. And go here, man, a lot of activity right here back and forth. Gnome is still there. Here, people walking all the way by. Doesn't look like he touched the gnome. And yeah, it's still here in the next one. So we can scroll through these really quickly, and we can see him peeking out right there. We can scroll through these really quickly, and it's so much faster than having to watch 25 or 30 seconds of video each time until we find, oh my gosh, looks like this person came up and they touched the little gnome. So we just skipped through 7 events, which were anywhere from 25 to 30 seconds. So that's 4 minutes of video that even with me talking probably only took about 45 seconds. And then if we're like, hey, this looks like we might have found our culprit, we can come in and then we can click play video. And that takes us back up to the video and I exit search. And we can use the keyboard controls to kind of speed it up so we can watch them walk in like super fast time until we see this person, there it is, coming. And sure enough, they reach down. They take the gnome, and actually they just put it in the planter. So they just kind of had a sense of humor. So let's see if we can figure out, if this was not the person, what happened there. Gnome, motion search again, and we can go through, and these are the things that we kind of already saw in this time frame. Gnome is there, going through and clicking. And let's see. You know what? Let me try that one more time. Exit search, motion search right here. And then we're going through. Here we go. This looks better. I set the search parameters a little too differently because the gnome had actually moved. So we can come in and we can see here's that person where they put the gnome there. And that's really where I should have been searching, not back over here. And then we can go through and we can actually see him. He's peeking out right there. Go through again, go through again. And I think this might be our culprit here. It looks like a gnome. And so we can come in here and click play video, exit search results. And again, let's kind of speed that up a little bit. We see this person coming in from over here. He comes. It's like he knows what he's doing. I think that person was his co-conspirator. And then we can watch them take the gnome. We can pause it if we want to get a better shot of it. And then we actually have two. So I can actually zoom in, and I think George lied to me. George told me that he could not find the gnome, but that's actually George right there. I think he just wanted to steal my gnome. So you can kind of see how, and this was, I will confess, this was a little bit of a setup here. We actually hoped someone else would steal the gnome and George wouldn't have to do it, but we had a person with kind of a sense of humor instead. But I did want to demonstrate to you how easy it was to kind of find what you're looking for with this motion search, and especially with motion recap. We're able to really quickly eliminate a lot of video that contain no motion, eliminate those false positives with those motion recap images, and watch just the video that we want to watch. Now, once we found our culprit, which in this case is George stealing my gnome, we have a few different options, right? If we didn't know who this was, we could take a screenshot, and actually that would download what we're viewing on the computer right now. And you can actually take Zoom screenshots too if you wanted to zoom in. And then I could circulate that and say, hey, have you seen this? Or I could just be like, George, I caught you taking my gnome. Right? Or now if this is something that you need to actually share video of the incident, then we have this share right here. And we have a few different options. So we can share a video link, which will copy the URL for this camera, this date and timestamp. I can send that to someone who has access to the dashboard so they can review it. Or I can export a video clip. If I needed to press charges against George for stealing my gnome and need to provide the police with evidence, I can export this video clip. It would pull it off of the camera at that time, where I could send a link for the police authorities to download into an MP4 file format that's easily viewable on any device, or I could download it myself if I needed to keep it longer. The video will have a date and timestamp on it for the camera, and we also have this checksum feature, which will actually verify the integrity of a video file after it has been exported from the camera to ensure that it has not been tampered with. So that is helpful if you need to use that video evidence in any court cases or legal matters to prove that this is really what was pulled from the camera untainted. So the last thing I want to show you before we kind of go back into some other things is just our 360 camera. So we saw this from just kind of one of our MV12s as a fixed camera, and we're only seeing it from one angle. And yes, we were able to get a really good shot of George as he comes in this way and walks off. But a lot of times you're looking at one thing and you kind of want to know what's happening in other areas. And for that, our fisheye camera actually makes actually offers a really good tool for doing that. So if I scroll in, and we're going to go back to here, the 360 camera, we're seeing that area from another viewpoint. This is the planter that we're looking at now. And this is the warped view. So I'm going to come in, click play, and then I'm going to go in and de-warp it. So I'm doing digital pan tilt zoom to watch, what's happening over here as George comes in, he walks in, he definitely takes the gnome right there, and then he walks off. But the cool thing about this, and we'll pause it here, is that I can see actually everything, and that's Taylor walking by right there. I can see actually everything that's happening in this area while that crime was being committed, which means that I have information about what's going on in other areas. I can see where he came from, where he went, what other people were doing, if this really was a co-conspirator situation, was this person over here causing a distraction while George came in to swoop the gnome. So this 360 fisheye camera is great. It's recording a wide field of view. We're recording everything in that warped state, that fisheye state, and it offers a digital pan, tilt, and zoom, which is what we're doing now, on both live and historical footage. So you're recording a big area, and then as you need to, you can go back and look at the scene from other areas really simply, really easily. So one of the questions that I'm pretty sure we have is probably about the storage of these cameras. You know, when I talk about the storage is on the camera, it's got up to 256 gigabytes of storage. People are like, well, what does that mean? And the answer to that is it depends. So we're going to go into the settings, and we're going to go into quality and retention, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So there are a variety of different controls that you have over the recording schedule, the retention schedule, and the video quality that affect the actual storage outcome. This camera here is set to always record, and we are recording for this fisheye camera, and actually I'm going to, not the fisheye camera, I'm going to go to a different camera to show you kind of on one of our other ones. Always set to record. We're recording at 1080p at high video quality, and we are getting 7 days of retention. This is like maxed out everything, 20 frames per second, 1080p, always recording. And now some people don't want to record a lot, so this is fine. And for those people, we also have a thing, hey, delete footage that's older than a certain period of time. But for a lot of people, they need more video. And one thing that we have up here is scheduled recording. So if you only need to record video during certain times, we can do that. But another thing that most people will use is motion-based retention. And this is very similar to motion-based recording, which exists on the majority of camera systems today, except for we give you a little bit of a cushion. So with motion-based retention, we'll always keep the most recent 72 hours of footage, full 24/7 for 3 days. And after that, we go through and remove footage that contains no motion. So if we click that, then we go from 7 days to 11, because this camera actually sees a high volume of motion, 16 hours of motion a day. We want to change from high video quality to enhanced video quality, then it goes to 21 days, and this is 15 frames per second. This is a camera that we just kind of wanted to have a general thing we weren't too concerned with. We go to standard, it goes 32. Now again, this camera sees a high amount of motion every day because our office is very busy. Even during the late hours of the night, we've got some people working crazy schedules. But if we come in here, click more information, you can kind of see what the average Meraki camera gets. So this is all of the cameras that are deployed. You know, what can you expect for motion? So if your target is 30 days, standard video quality at 1080p, 94% of Meraki cameras are actually getting that when enabling motion-based retention. You go to enhance and it drops to 83. But you can kind of play around with this and see, you know, exactly what it is you're looking for, and is it likely that this camera is going to meet that need. Now, the other thing that we have, and I mentioned it in the beginning, is cloud archive. So if you do have requirements for longer storage or secondary storage, we have an optional cloud archive license that will do a 24/7 backup of everything for either 90 or 180 days, so 3 or 6 months basically. So that will give you much longer storage. It'll give you 24/7. It can give you a secondary backup because we will dual record both to the camera and to the cloud. So that offers a lot more flexibility and peace of mind for areas where there are requirements for longer storage. All right, and I'm going to show you just one thing, kind of the video walls, and then we'll jump back into the demo for the rest of the presentation. I'm sorry, back to the presentation. So if you do have a need to watch multiple videos at one time, or you need to you need a security guard or facilities person to kind of monitor all the time what's happening, we have these video walls that can be set up. And you have the ability to configure them with up to 16 cameras at one time. They're customizable. You can do it in full screen to kind of see everything. And the layouts are super easy to build. So I come in here, click edit layouts. I can click more cameras that I want to add. If I want to add this IDF room or this coffee bar seating, we've added the cameras up here. And then I can drag them, resize, and do whatever I need to do to kind of create my custom video walls. So those are super simple, and they can be combined with these roles, where you can set up roles for people to have access to just cameras and not the rest of your network, or just certain cameras. So if they were the person monitoring the very exciting stairwells at the Meraki office, you could create an account so they would only have the ability to log in and see just these stairwell cameras. The final note, because some of you may be wondering, we have all these blacked out boxes. These are privacy windows. So if there are areas where you do not want recording to happen in our workspace, we've blocked off office areas, conference rooms. You can do these privacy windows. No recording is actually happening there. It's kind of a dead space, and that's kind of what it looks like on our cameras. So we're going to pause for a second again and then go back into the presentation for a little bit. All right, so I demoed a couple of the cameras that you just saw in the Meraki office, the MV32 Fisheye camera and the MV12. But we have a few other models in our lineup, the MV22, which is actually a varifocal camera, and the MV72, which is also varifocal. They can do up to 3x optical zoom. The MV72 is our outdoor model. It's IP67 and IK10 plus rated. It has a heater in it, so it can work in very cold temperatures as well, demanding environments. If you have an area that is at risk for theft or vandalism, this is the one we recommend here. It will take a considerable amount of time to get that camera off the wall to damage it. So we have, as I said, a variety of cameras, but they're all going to have the same functionality that we kind of showed in there for that motion searching, that digital zoom. The difference is going to be that 360 camera that has that, pan and tilt on there, so you can move around and look at the scene from different angles. Now, the other thing these cameras all have in common is the ability to be configured wirelessly. And you may be thinking that wireless cameras don't seem that revolutionary. You might have one in your doorbell, on your bookshelf at home. But the difference between those types of kind of consumer-based cameras and enterprise deployments is that those cameras are always streaming everything to the cloud. And so in a normal situation, if you think about what traditional camera systems do, they're always storing video somewhere. It would quickly eat up all of your wireless bandwidth, even if they were just being wirelessly stored or wirelessly streamed to some server on your local network. With Meraki cameras, because we are very bandwidth conscious and we do not use a lot of bandwidth unless you're watching video, it enables us to do this wireless kind of at an enterprise scale. So this enables a few different opportunities. One is a very easy upgrade from analog. So if you have an older analog camera system and you've been wanting to move to an IP-based camera system, but cannot, for whatever reason, cost disruption, maybe older buildings, through that whole rip and replace, to rip out that analog cabling, MV offers a great opportunity for that. You can actually leave that analog cabling in place, use the power source that was powering that camera, that old camera, use one of our power adapters to convert it to PoE to power, and then everything will be done wirelessly from that point on. It also offers great flexibility for remote or outdoor areas, visibility into kind of challenging locations that are far from a primary site, or temporary site security. So if you need to throw up a camera during an event or during construction, you don't need to worry about wiring, just some sort of power source and a wireless signal, and you can run multiple cameras off of a single cell signal as well. So again, you have a lot of flexibility in getting these cameras up and running. And this is kind of what it looks like at a high level. Again, the image on the right here that you see is what it would look like if you were replacing an analog camera deployment. So you don't need to do anything with that coax cable. The power source would go into the adapter and it would output PoE to power the camera. And again, everything is done wirelessly. So a lot more functionality, a lot less effort. And so for the rest of this, we're going to talk about the idea of camera as a sensor. As I mentioned, there is a lot of video, a lot of information in video, but the vast majority of video is never watched. And so we wanted to offer our customers like yourselves a way to get more from that information that you were storing with that video. So we have smart cameras that do more. We wanted to offer cameras that we're able to learn and provide more insights over time, that we're able to offer a better understanding of customer behavior patterns in your organization, in your store, in your school, in your office space. It also has the ability to provide context or trigger action in other systems. So one of the things that we have on our cameras is object detection. Our cameras all have the ability to do machine learning, which we'll talk about in just a second, but look at everything in the frame of the camera and understand and discern different objects. And the first object that we taught the cameras to detect was people, since that's what most are concerned with. Where are people? How many people are there? Where do people go? Where did they come from? So this is anonymized person detection. It's available on all of our current MV camera lineup that we showed you. And an example use case of this is people counting to better understand in-store customer behavior patterns. And you can see this is a screenshot of the show people option on one of our cameras. You can see that it's detecting the people here at this coffee bar in Meraki. And this takes advantage of machine learning. So our cameras have Qualcomm Snapdragon processors on board that are powering this machine learning. And if you're not familiar with machine learning, what it is the ability for cameras to get smarter, or anything to get smarter, based on the more things that it sees. So if you think about a child learning to identify different objects, maybe take bird, for example, and you're pointing out, like, there's a bird, it's a blackbird, or a seagull, that's a bird. Maybe take it to the zoo and it sees a peacock, and that's a bird too. And the more birds that it sees, the better able it is to identify birds from different angles, different sizes, flying, sitting in nests. And then all of a sudden it's able to see birds it's never seen before, maybe a penguin, and still say bird. And that's kind of what machine learning is. The more information that we feed it, the better able it is to identify people from different angles, wearing hats, on bikes, with backpacks, because it has a better understanding of what people is, or people are. And with this, and we'll show you in dashboard, we do have the ability to show you a count of people, some trend information, and even narrow it down to different zones. But if you need to get this information out and into third-party systems to provide more context, we have the MV Sense API. So the way this works is we take all that video data, it's running through that MV computer vision machine learning algorithm on each camera, and we can spit out this pre-processed high-value data in a couple different ways. First is a historical aggregate, so how many were here at X time. The second is a current snapshot, if I need to know how many people are here now. Those are both requests, and they can be sent into, again, a third-party application. And the third way is a real-time feed. So this is actually really cool because it includes a sub-second feed of objects, people, and the location of that object. So you could track a person's journey while they stay within the frame of that camera to understand maybe they stood by this display for 30 seconds, and then they did go around the corner to that aisle and pick up that product. Or they stood there and then they walked away. So it helps you understand what's happening, how people are actually acting in your space. And now, why does this matter? Well, it enables more integrations with things like Cisco Kinetic, but it also eliminates a ton of infrastructure. So in order to do this type of analytics, or even just basic people counting, with traditional systems, it would require special software, a lot of servers, and a lot of complex configurations that put it out of reach for many organizations. But because we're offering this high-value data for use in third-party systems, so we've already done the processing, we know where the people are, where they went, how long they were there, it can help you get to where you need to be faster. And a couple of use cases for this, and we talked a little bit about the retail aspect, but you can set it up so that an employee gets a notification if there are more than 3 people in a certain department. In education, school staff or security can receive notifications if there are students on the playground during class hours. Or in public safety, police or fire can quickly determine if there are people left in the building during an evacuation. So you get an idea for how flexible this information is and how it can kind of be of use to a variety of different applications. So we're going to show you what some of that looks like in dashboard. This will be a really quick demo, and then we'll finish out and probably answer some more of the questions. So just a second, we'll be right back. All right, so we are back in our camera dashboard, and for this I'm going to go look at one of our outdoor cameras. So I come in and maybe we'll look at this fourth floor deck lunch seating, partially because I want to see how busy it is. It's a beautiful day in San Francisco. So I can click on that and I can now look at the video from here. But that's not really what we're interested in. We're actually interested in the analytics. So if I click on this tab, I can see the count of people that the camera has detected today. And if I go to yesterday, I can click in there, and I can see a full day of information. Now, we've had a really nice week, so I'm actually not surprised by these numbers. If this was a few months ago, maybe during one of our crazy rainstorms, then there'd be far fewer people that this camera would detect. But we've got a nice area, it's sunny, people are going out for lunch. So I can see kind of the trend here. This is probably some of our early morning people coming in and maybe getting coffee outside, and then it starts to pick up maybe outside breakfast. And then as we get into lunch, more and more people are walking, into this area, coming in and out. And then it definitely takes a steep dive at the 1 o'clock hour. Lunch ends around 1 here, and then it's pretty low up until the evening hours, and we've got nobody that was picked up in this area, after about 8 p.m., which makes sense. Not a lot of people are outside in the office then. So you can get this information. You can kind of see, what's happening, when are the busiest times, where are people congregating, and when, and how many people total came in this space. Now, if we scroll down, then we have motion heat maps. So this is not just the people, but this is relative motion that the camera detects over time. And that's why in these ones, you can actually see some motion happening in the street here as cars drive by. And then you can kind of see that indeed very little happens. Someone seemed to have been sitting right here from 6 to 7 yesterday. And then it gets busy at lunch and then again tapers off, kind of as we saw with the people counting here. So again, this is relative motion, not just people, but any type of motion the camera is detecting. All right, so we're going to go back to the dashboard. I'm sorry, back to the presentation. I don't know why I keep doing that, and finish out. All right. So with our MV smart cameras, we're really pushing for the idea of physical security along with business intelligence, and that's really what we're trying for with the term smart camera too. So some of that is making the physical security aspect of it faster and easier. So with motion search, the ability to isolate key motion events, use the motion recap results to make it faster to find out what you're looking for, and then super easy to export video segments out. And then from the business intelligence part, we have our motion heat maps, the object detection, the granularity you can get with it to understand how your space is being really used, and that MVSense API to get that object detection, that high value data out so you can combine it in with other systems to be better, to be more productive, to better understand your space, allocate resources, that sort of thing. With Meraki, we have a all-inclusive simple licensing model. So it's a one-to-one license to hardware model with the cameras, and it is super simple, so it's one license SKU for that regardless of the camera model. And we have a 3-year warranty on all cameras as well. That license includes all software updates for new features and bug fixes. An example of that is our newly released motion recap. So we just pushed that out to customers recently, and anyone who had a 2nd generation camera got that without having to do anything, configure anything, or pay any extra money. We also have 24/7 end user support, phone, email, and in dashboard, so we're always there when you need us. And a big part of what makes the cameras so great from an end user experience is the dashboard. So it's not just the simple to use things, but it's kind of the extra thought we put into it. So things like local time zones, which are very important with video, offline device alerting, connectivity history, along with other network insights, the automatic firmware upgrades, and from a security standpoint, things like 2-factor authentication, so we can make sure it's always the person that should be logging in that's logging in. And I did mention that there are additional benefits when you have more Meraki equipment. Everything that I showed you on the cameras is possible without anything else, but there is interoperability, more troubleshooting tools, and visibility when you have additional pieces of Meraki equipment. And we have everything from, again, wireless access points with actually the new Wi-Fi 6, security appliances, switches, unified endpoint management, Meraki Insight, and of course our smart camera line. It's all going to be managed from that same dashboard that we showed you in the demo today. So for next steps, just a reminder again about the risk-free evaluation. If you want to check that out, talk to your rep. All right, so I think that is all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do see George at any event, please tell him to give me back my gnome. And hopefully we'll see you again in another webinar soon.